Valiant warrior knights and pious champions of the Emperor, the Black Templars are deeply unusual among the Adeptus Astartes for venerating the Emperor as a literal god. In this video, we'll be showing you how to paint a mighty Terminator in the colours of the fanatically devoted Black Templars. We'll be painting to a battle-ready standard and adding an optional extra to boost the paint job to the next level. If you're new to painting, you can check out the Citadel Colour Painting Essentials videos to learn more about it. The paints we've used are listed on screen now. We're painting in the colours of the Black Templars, but remember, you can paint your miniatures however you like. Also on screen now is any additional equipment we've used in this guide. This includes brushes and mediums. However, feel free to use whatever brushes you're most comfortable with. And if you don't have mediums at home, you could use water instead. The first thing we'll do is undercoat the model, and for this we've used Chaos Black. This will give us a great head start on the armour. Now the first thing that we're going to do is use Abaddon Black to paint the whole model. This might seem a little bit strange, seeing as we've already undercoated in Chaos Black. However, Abaddon Black has a slightly different finish to the spray can, so if we do this now, it means we can really easily tidy up mistakes later on. For this, we'll use a medium base brush. We don't need to worry about being neat here at all, so just take your time and get into all those tricky to reach areas. Next, we'll paint the helmet, and for this, we'll use Corax White. Corax White is a base paint, so we need to thin it down on our palette with some water. Then, once the consistency is much smoother, we can apply it to the miniature in several thin layers. Doing several layers rather than one thick coat avoids clogging up all of that fine detail. Next, we'll paint the Crux Terminatus and any rocks on the base too, and for this, we'll use Celestra Grey. When you're painting these details, just take your time and be careful around any of the details that we've already painted. However, don't worry, you can always tidy up mistakes with any of the previous colours. Once again, thin this paint down on your palette and apply a couple of layers. This will get you a full coverage. Now it's time to paint the red details, and for these we'll use Corn Red. This will be areas like the weapon and any purity seal wax. We'll also use this for the eye lenses. This is a really nice deep red, which will contrast really well against the rest of the colour scheme. Now to paint the parchment of the model, we'll be using Wraithbone. Again, thin it down and apply a few layers. It'll take 2 to 3 coats to cover over that black undercoat. Make sure you allow each layer of paint to fully dry before you apply the next one. If we don't do this, it could build up unwanted texture. And once that's done, we can really see this paint scheme coming together. So now we're going to add some metallic details. So for the first metallic paint, we'll be using Iron Hand Steel, and we'll use this on any silver areas. This is areas on the gun and also some details on the back of the miniature like the vents. Once again, this is a really nice bright colour that contrasts against the rest of the colour scheme. We'll be adding a wash over it later, which will help tie everything together. Iron Hand Steel is still a base paint, so remember we need to thin it down and apply a few layers. Make sure we don't thin it too much as it will become watery and then it won't settle on the miniature correctly. Now for the brassy areas of the miniature, we'll use Runelord Brass, and again we'll be adding a wash over this, which will really add depth and age later on. Use a small layer brush here and just take your time working your way around the miniature, picking out all of those details. Again, you'll probably need a couple of layers to achieve a full coverage. And once that's done, all your base coats are finished. So now we can move on to adding some depth with some shades and contrasts. So our first contrast paint is going to be Apothecary White, and we'll be thinning this down with some contrast medium. We'll be applying this over the white helmet, as this will add a really subtle amount of depth. We thin it down so that it's more subtle and doesn't overpower that base coat. This also means we can apply it all over the helmet. We'll be using 2 parts contrast medium to 1 part Apothecary White for this mixture. You might want to use a slightly larger brush here as it will hold more of the paint. And when we're applying contrast over quite large areas, we want to apply it quickly and neatly, working in small sections. Doing this, make sure that the paint doesn't dry too quickly, which could leave marks on the flat surfaces. Next, we'll move on to applying Agrex Earthshade, and we'll be using this on the brassy areas and the parchment too. When we're using it on the parchment, we need to thin the paint down slightly. Again, this will stop it overpowering that pale Wraithbone base coat. So we'll take 1 part Lamia Medium to 1 part Agrex Earthshade and mix that together. then you can see that it goes on quite subtly onto the miniature. Then we'll take Agrax Earthshade straight from the pot and apply that over those brassy details. You'll see that this adds loads of depth and interest. When you're applying shades and contrast paint, just be careful to control any excess pooling. If you do find it pooling too much in any of the recesses, clean off your brush and use that to soak up any excess. Now our final contrast will be Basilicanum Grey, and we'll be using this with Contrast Medium. We'll thin it down with 1 part Contrast Medium to 1 part Basilicanum Grey, and we'll be applying this over any silver and grey areas. Once again, this will add lots of depth and help to tie the whole miniature together. You might notice that we've used a couple of contrast paints as shades here. Just take your time and work your way around the miniature, picking out all of those areas and applying that contrast over them. Now your Black Templar's Terminator is battle ready and ready to march unstoppably across the gaming table and destroy your enemies. However, if you'd like to see a quick and easy way to add an extra step and really take this paint job up a notch, stick with us. The final thing we'll do is apply an edge highlight, and we'll use Thunderhawk Blue for this. When you're edge highlighting, it's really up to you how much or how little of it you want to do. You could work your way around the miniature picking out every single edge, or you could just choose to pick out the most prominent ones. The choice is entirely yours. A small layer brush works best here, and remember we need to thin that paint down on the palette first. We want it to glide effortlessly off the brush without being too watery. So make sure to test the consistency of the paint on your palette before you apply it to the miniature. Then use the edge of your brush and run this along any hard armour panel lines. Doing this will create a quick and easy highlight, and it will be really crisp too. Don't be scared to twist the model around as much as you need to make sure you get the best angle for that highlight. And as always, if you make any mistakes, you can just tidy up with the previous colours. And there you have it, your Black Templar's Terminator is finished and looking awesome, ready to charge onto the gaming table and annihilate the foe. You can see that we've applied transfers to our model and we've also based it. To do this, we've used a technical paint called Armageddon Dunes, and to learn more about technical paints, you can check out our video all about them. For more tutorials, tips and tricks, you can head to your local Warhammer store where our amazing staff will be more than happy to help you, or head on over to citadelcolour.com. Well, we hope you've enjoyed the video and we'll see you next time. Bye!